So the 5 remembrances to help us. So this is a very good example in the way that the Buddha taught us. I know that deep in my psyche there is this worry, there is this fear. We fear of old age, getting sick and dying. So the 5 remembrances is like this. That I know these fears are within my psyche, so I invite them up high. So I can be in touch with my insight. I will have to get old. I cannot escape getting old. So even though we might have the insight about the birth and death is just on the surface, and no birth, no death is at the bottom. And getting old is something very normal, and we can smile with getting old, and we have that insight. But at the depth, there is a fear, the fear of getting old and being lonely. So we have to invite it up to work with it. Work in a very close way, very happily together. And the second thing is, I will have to die. I cannot escape death. This is our fear, our worries. We don't want to think about it. And we still this ghost, this is half this, half that. So I invite the second fear and worries up. Everyone will have to die. Die so that we can be alive. So that is an object for our minds to work with. So like this, we can combine, connect the top part and the bottom part. Because people in the modern days, they are cut in half. The up half, they live with the society, and the bottom half is not related to society, and it's expressed in our dreams. And the third thing is, I will get sick. I cannot escape from getting sick. We have a body, we will get sick. So we have to accept the aging and getting sick. And we know that intellectually, when we're sick, we know what to do. So how should we practice in our body, or how we should practice it with our mind, so that our sickness is lessened. But when we get sick, we cannot resist the sickness, because meanwhile I just learned this in terms of the intellectual level. So we have to invite this fear up, this fear and this anxiety. And the fourth remembrance is all the things that I treasure today, all the people that I love, all the things I treasure. One day I will have to leave them. This is to invite the fear to come up. Because when we love someone, we're afraid that this person one day we will be separate from them. When we treasure something, an object, and because of impermanence, one day that thing will be separate. So we keep worries about it, and it's very deep underneath. So we have to invite it up, so that it can be our object of contemplation. So when we do sitting, we can do this work. We have to invite it up. If we want the two parts of our self can be connect together, as a one whole. Or sometimes we might just feel with some peace and ease, some part of it on the surface. But at the depth, there is still this fear and worry. So that means what we call, we have not done the transformation at the base. So the fifth remembrance is, I will inherit all the things I have said and done. I cannot bring with myself anything else beside the consequences of what I have said and done. And that's the fifth remembrance. I will be the inheritor of all my actions and my think and what I have done, what I think. So when I leave, I can only bring this. I cannot bring with me my degrees or my position, my leadership positions. Cannot take it with me. Even the title of a Dharma teacher. And all of this, it becomes because something that we have lived, it won't surprise us because we have lived with it and transformed it. In our modern days, is the time where there's a lot of fear and worries. And this fear and worries, even little kids, 5, 6 years old, will have to worries. Because parents always pressure them so that they can be a good students, and they study day and night. In Japan or other countries, they want kids to grow up to enter good universities, so they have to study 3 to 5 times harder than normal. So they get a lot of stress. And there's recent report that kids commit suicide because they cannot tolerate that pressure. So don't just say that it's only adults. Unemployment and all these fears, creating all these fears. And all those fears, we push them down. And we use TV and shows and playing video games. And we occupy the upper parts so we don't think about the lower part. When we suppress it down, and then our psyche get stagnant and would cause illnesses. So clearly you live the one half as one person during the day and the other half during the night. So there is a resistance. This is the reason why we get sick. And when we practice the teachings and we teach the teachings, so we see that this is the medicine that will heal our time. So now we will continue to talk about what we have started. That when we hear something or see something, we have this tendency to react right away. So now we know very clearly that that reaction is just at the upper half. And that upper half, the surface, it might not be very deep. It might not represent the two parts of ourselves. So to practice, we have to train so that what we hear it can penetrate through this wall and it can go down. This is very important. Here, without reaction, even if it's an inner reaction. Reaction does not mean that you have to say the words or your attitude only. But reaction can be something silently inside, but do not react. You have to give it a chance to go inside, to enter. So that's why we understand the Zen language. The Zen language is to penetrate through this wall of reactions. It causes us to be upside down and we cannot react the normal way. When you ask, what is the clap of one hand? And we have no ways to react because we don't understand it to react to. The clap of two hands, we can understand. The clap of one hand, how can you understand that? So there's no reaction. That's why that phrase, it can penetrate this veil of reaction and goes down. And Zen Master Chuzhou back then has a student. And he came and asked him that, respected teacher, can the dog become a Buddha? Does it have the Buddha nature? And he said, no. That story, we can't understand it if we don't know the scenario in which it happens, that conversations. And of course, before that, he must have taught about everyone, not just every human, but also plant, mineral, and animals. They all have Buddha nature. So this student had this feeling that I am not that good. So if he has a chance to meet the teacher and ask something to show that, oh, I understand the Mahayana literature and that everything has Buddha nature. And if I ask him that, he would say like, yes, you're a good student. But he said, no, a dog doesn't have Buddha nature. So that phrase, that dog doesn't have Buddha nature, is to cause him to get lost in his way of thinking, because he reacts in just that normal way. So he cannot react anymore. So his words, it can penetrate this veil of reaction and enter him. And this is just the initial steps. And later on, he has more chances to understand the teacher's phrase is due to his own practice and contemplations. And if the teacher just say, oh yes, this Buddha nature, then there is no benefits to the student. So you would just put another layer of paint on his perception that everything has Buddha nature. So you cannot use that idea, that intellectual idea, you cannot use it. It is just a dogma. Just like you say, everything is impermanent and has no self. And everyone can say that, but it's useless for our life. We can say that everything has no self. But everything we do, we can enlarge our ego. So that statement, that declaration is useless. So the Zen language has this cleverness of finding ways to penetrate through this wall, what you call reaction, to enter in. So we live in this scenario and we learn this language and we can use it very naturally. For example, one time When I was walking at the head of protests, anti-bombing of the North in Philadelphia, against the bombing of the North, and I walk in the front with other organizers and priests, and the reporters ask me, "Are you from the North or from the South?" And according to what the reporter, there are two categories. If I'm North, then I'm South. If I'm not this, or is that true? If the South has to be against the North, and the North should be against the South. And the South follows the U.S. and the North follows the Russia and China. And I laugh. I said, I'm from the middle, from the central. If I say I'm from the South, he would misunderstand right away. If I say the North, he will misunderstand right away. And if saying it's North or South, then it's harm him. Then if I say I'm from the middle, then I get him upside down, because all his ideas he cannot use. And because of this phrase that he has a chance to learn later and see the truth that we don't need to be the North or the South, but we can still walk on a protest against the bombing in the North. Then the South can protest that, or the North can protest that. Why does it have to be the North has to protest and the South doesn't protest? So I just say that certainly, but this certain phrase means that I have been absorbed in this Zen language. This is the language that means it does not want you to accumulate ideas, but the whole point is to break down concepts and ideas and this wall of reactions. So when you practice, you should learn like this. When you hear something, do not react right away. Let that to sink and penetrate through the wall of response. And there are many benefits to this. It's not that you are the slow ones. You listen, but you have to let it enter you. We are often pressured by authorities outside. When the doctor says something about an illness, then we think the doctor is right. Or the lawyers talk about laws, then we think that the lawyer is correct. But there are many times they are wrong. And the lawyers that can cause us a lot of hardship, or the doctors can cause a lot of hardship, there are many of them. When we hear the Bodhisattva Kuan Yin saying that there is no eyes, ears, nose, tongues, no touch, and there is no suffering, there is no Four Noble Truth, then we get so afraid. We said, if the Bodhisattva say that, then I cannot disobey, so I just follow that. And the other day we learned that the Four Noble Truth is that there is each truth, but if the Bodhisattva is an authority, as someone has great powers and saying that there is no Four Noble Truths, then we hear that. That's because that's the Bodhisattva say that, but if someone else saying that, that's you be in trouble with me. If a farmer or a regular beggar saying that there is no Four Noble Truth, then we could argue and argue all the way, because we are pressured by the names and the authority of the other person. So when we listen, do not let yourself be pressured, because the Buddha taught us, do not believe immediately what's been said, even if it's in the sutra or even if it's in the tradition passing down for thousands of years. So we can keep our freedom and we let that go deep inside. And Zen koan, they have this language like this. Let me know what your face looks like before, what you look like before your grandma was born. How can you use the regular response? We give up. We have to open up to let that phrase come in. We have to open the door for that to come in. And what comes in, it becomes something that keep you thinking about it. And we have to think about that for many years and days. And this is a koan. It's on your mind because you could not eat or sleep well because of this koan. So I'm very compassionate with you, so I do not give you koans. You can still eat 2 or 3 bowls of soup. So when it enters you, then you have this chance to transform and to see your true face. I just think that, oh, true face, that's not hard to find. I just need to look at the mirror. But here is a face of me before my grandma was born. So I have to go back in time and look at all my origins in space and time. So what is my true nature? It's my Buddha nature, my non-self, no birth, no death self. Let me know what is your true face looks like. This is an invitation to find your true nature. It's a very long journey, very far journey to go back home. Such as the Master had said, all phenomena come back to one. So where does that one comes back to? This is a koan that's very popular. Even a person who doesn't do Zen should know. All phenomenon, vạn pháp quy nhất. Nhất quy hà xứ. $10,000 phenomenons returns to one, into the one. And where does that one returns to? Where does that one returns to? And that kind of language is for you to find your true nature. And if you're successful, you can see your no death, no birth nature. Back then, the poet Đông Hồ and Miss Seven, Mộng Tuyết, so they created a bookstore. It's called The Four Directions, and Thay, brother Thich Nhat went, and he was young, and he came and he bought a book of poetry. He didn't have enough money, so he bought it and would pay later. They allow him to pay back later. So it's very cute. I still remember the poet Đông Hồ wrote an advertisement about his poem, about his publishing house. It's a poem, gathering from the 4 directions and spreading it out in the 4 directions. The boat is on the ocean, because the image has a poem, is a boat on the sea with the birds flying above, and the cloud calling for the songs and literatures. So that was his poem, and the first 2 sentences to gather from 4 directions and spread out in 4 directions. It means that all his poets and authors from all directions came and they would publish. And when they publish, it's sent back to the 4 directions. So the sentence of the sentence of all phenomenons gather into one, and where does that one goes returns to, is a similar sentiment. So our self is a point where the whole universe gather. We have learned from previous week that not just the past, the present, and the future are also gathered right in us. And we can see that, and we can dwell peacefully in the present moment. We do not need to go seek somewhere else, and do not need to go do something else. Don't have to go somewhere or return to somewhere. And if we return in each moment. 10,000 phenomena returns to one, and where does the one returns to? This is the language that invites us to go into deep reflections and find our roots. Once we find our roots, we can see that I do not need to go return to somewhere. When a person says something that can enter us, then we can avoid this very quick and foolish reaction. The ball get pushed back right away. It's not useful. It might be harmful. We say something very unpleasant and harsh. We push it back right away. It's not benefiting us or the other person, and it harms us. Because this reaction is based upon this wall of irritations and the wall of feeling inferior, insecure. And if we allow for it to penetrate down like this, and maybe within a few minutes, we can see that I do not need to react. This is the first scenario. Second scenario is we see that I don't need to react. Do you remember that day when maybe a guy who said something and that makes you so anger, annoyed, and we feel so insecure, and he did not let you have the chance to reply to him, so we came back, and you could not eat your meal, and you were so angry. You think that, oh, if he just gave me 2 minutes and I can respond to him, that I'm not a stupid person, he can say whatever. And we get so angry, and we could not eat our meal. But that night, somehow we were able to sleep well. Sleep well maybe from the bless of the merit of the Sangha or our ancestor. And the next day we wake up and we say, oh, that's funny. Why do I need to answer him? If I don't answer him, I won't die. Even not answering him, it might even be better. This is something that we all might have gone through. Why do I need to answer him? So these situations, they can be 60 to 80% of all the scenarios that 60 to 80% of the situation we might answer the other person, and we cause these destructions in our relationships. And this happens because we're able to open a little door, a crack in the door for that to penetrate into us. And we have the time and the wisdom inside us. Let us show us that all those things you do not need to respond to or react to. And usually that's the case, because that person can say something in a very shallow way. He might not say something that's not very skillfully, and they have their own ego. And if we just react to everything that he say, then that's, if we react to everything he said, then that's a disaster, because that will cause suffering for him and for ourselves. So we let penetrate through the wall reactions and go down, and that's already a great thing. If it can penetrate even deeper, it meets another seed. The seed that it might not have developed up here yet. And we're able to find the truth that what he said, sometimes it can feel very unpleasant, foolish, and stupid like this, but there is a seed of truth within it. Usually he said something, maybe 80% or 90% that is wrong perception, but maybe there's a 10% that's correct perception. So a phrase that can seem so foolish or mistaken like that, it can contain a few seeds of jewels of the truth within it. So within that, we can learn something, because we have allowed it to penetrate and activate a good seed within us. That good seed might not grow up or mature yet. For example, that news reporter, his ability, he knows that not just a northerner or southerner can protest the bombing of the north. But a Vietnamese person does not need to be from the north or south, can be a Vietnamese. So the sentence say, I'm from the central, from the middle area. It gives him a chance to let that sentence penetrate inside and be in touch with his wisdom, that there is no, it's not just two ways only, whether to protest or to support. Maybe there's a third way, the way of love and compassion, a way of no discrimination, the way of not taking side. So in this situation, we start to see that there is this truth, some truth within it. And we learn from that declaration, that phrase, that action. Down here, we have the seeds of wisdom that did not have the chance to grow yet, to develop, because no one has watered them. And the thing that people say or do, sometimes for the first time, it can penetrate through us and it can water the seeds. If the thing about whether the dog has Buddha nature or not, it only happens at the wall of reactions, then how can it penetrate and goes down? And it becomes a true life, true living, and it's not just concepts and ideas and just intellectual language on the surface. So what the master taught, and the thing that the raw thing that people say, they can also have this effect, helping us to be in touch and break apart these ignorance within us. If we go deeper, we meet a seed, the seed of insight, of wisdom. And the seed of insight is there down here, but it has not been developed up here yet. So we just react in the way of just reflecting back the wall. But if we go down deeper, we see the seed of wisdom, and then we can see there is love. Earlier, we have this tendency to get angry and say what we want to say to satisfy ourselves, to show that we are smart, that the other person is stupid, and just say foolish things. But now, our insight shows us that this person needs to be helped. And when we're able to use this insight and our compassion to receive, to look deeply into what's been said, then certainly we have this very good heart that's saying that how I would react, so that can open the eyes that this to and resolve and to encourage and transform the other person. In the beginning, we just get irritated and disappointed, but now it goes to this stage and we see that we are able in touch with the seed of love and compassion, and we give rise to the heart that I want to help this person. We don't hate this person, and we open their eyes, we resolve, and we encourage and help them transform with our skillful means. And we know when to do that and when we should not do that. Maybe we have this insight already and we all have the methods, but maybe now you cannot help them. You have to wait 2 or 3 more days or 6 months later so that you can help this person. And during that 6 months you have love and you have encouragement for this person, but at least you have and the person has not react back to you yet, but at least you break apart this wall of reactions and all the things goes down. So we do not just let what's beautiful and what's nice to go inside, but you also let the things that does not seem so beautiful to go inside as well, because there is also the seed of beautiful and truth inside it, and the goodness inside that can help transform the other person. And in the end, when what they say, even though it sounds very unreasonable and very and oppose what we perceive, but it's able to touch the seed of insight and wisdom, the deepest wisdom inside us, just as the wisdom of the insight of no birth, no death. And this seed, it might be opposing all of our perception at the surface. This is what you call Buddha nature, the suchness. And the non-duality. All of us, we have these seeds. This is a nuclear bomb that has not exploded yet inside us. But when this bomb explodes, it breaks apart all the structures of ignorance and of discrimination. So this koan that the teacher gave us, he tried so that it can enter through. And the purpose of the koan is to break apart. Now, during the war, people send bombs to another country, and sometimes they don't have to point at the target in just a linear, direct path, but the bomb finds the target, and the target that you want to break down, because it has that heat signature inside it. So the bomb looks for a place that has this heat, and so that means there's activity, and it comes and explodes. So the koan of the Zen master is the same. If the Zen master gives us something and we only works with it within this area and this wall of reactions in our whole life, so our whole life, it would go nowhere. So the Zen language, there is this, the good thing is, this good thing that it's penetrate through this wall of response and put a bomb inside. And that bomb, it finds the seed to explode. But during that time, we have to practice, we have to allow it. If we keep it just at the intellectual level of perceptions, and we just exercise, we only exercise with these ideas, then it doesn't go anywhere. But if it penetrates through, it can be in touch. It can be in touch with this seed, the seed of explosion of our insight. That in all of us we have, then there is explosions, and all of our knowledge we have will certainly fall down, because we are so sure, we're so certain that what all we know, these are things that are the truth for thousands of years. That this is the peak of humanity's peak of wisdom. So we get stuck. So when this koan goes deep in our heart, our mind, and it goes look for that insight, and it came and caused that seed to explode, and we know that there is no enemy. There's nothing need to do. We have dwelled happily in nirvana in the present moment. And this realization, it means that there is a total destruction, the whole system of our perception, the structure of perception based upon duality, based upon discriminations, that there is birth, there is death. There is a person, and there is someone else, and there's me, there's coming, there's going. There's success, there is failure. And that perception totally breaks down. So to listen, it is an art. And do not listen just the usual way. Listen just to respond, react right away. And this breaking down of this whole system of our perceptions. Our system of perception is a palace that's been built and constructed on the surface. And this palace is based upon these foundations of all the other explosive. And so when this koan goes deep, penetrate to the depth of our psyche, and it can touch that explosive, the seeds of suchness, the seeds of the Buddha nature, then it creates a destruction, and that's when this is the moment of liberation, the moment of light. Because The poem I created long time ago. I would say everything. If you ask, well, how much do I want? I would say everything. I am greedier than back then, very greedy. You and me and everyone walking around in miracles. All these separate parts full of suffering, breaking apart from the whole. For a long time we have been looking, we searching in the prisons of deceptions and loneliness. Today you came back and you bow down below the Buddha and eyes full of tears. A soul, the soul seeking for things, myself in the past, looking for a soul. Let you lay for a long time next to the Buddha statue and let you to have eyes full of tears and let you have time so that your tears dry up. Because one day I will come and torch your tent, your last tent on the hillside, the last tent of your life. This is the place, the last refuge, so that the fire comes up higher to break apart everything. So the last refuge, so that the heart shell of your soul in this miracle will break apart and so full of light. I will wait for you so that the fire, the majestic fire with the last refuge burn and your eyes full of tears and happiness. And I will ask you, how much do you want? You would say everything. This moment of explosion, this is the moment we can break down our last refuge, the last refuge of deception. In the beginning we suffer and we find a place of refuge. It could be faith, and we find a little bit of comfort, a little bit of peace to survive. But our goal is not just to survive only. Our goal is to break down the shell of ignorance, the shell of ego, so that the light fills us up. And this is the most wondrous moment in the life of a practitioner. And that poem I wrote in 1956, many decades ago.